What's up guys, it's Amir, and today I want to debunk some of the myths in regards to hair transplants, because there's a lot of mumbo jumbo around and just from tossed around from people who've never gotten a hair transplant, and it spreads a lot of misinformation, and I want to clear some of those things up. So especially if you're thinking of getting a hair transplant, you kind of go into it with the right expectations without having to second guess yourself, or more importantly, if this is something that's right for you. So that being said, let's get started. I'd like to thank the sponsor of today's video is Vera Clinic. Vera Clinic is where I got my hair transplant done from. If you're looking for a quality, trusted professionals who can get you long-lasting and natural-looking results for a fraction of a price, look no further than Vera Clinic. They got me these amazing results for my own hair transplant, and I would highly recommend them to anybody looking to get their own transplant done, especially overseas. If you want to check out my series of my hair transplant, where I filmed the whole surgery and everything, as well as my month-by-month recovery, I'll leave a link to that whole playlist in the description below, as well as the contact information for Vera Clinic so you can contact them for your own hair transplant needs. That being said, let's jump right into the video. Myth number one, the results from a hair transplant are immediate. That couldn't be further from the truth. The full results from a hair transplant can come anywhere between 12 to 18 months after the transplant has taken place. In fact, after you get your transplant, your hair actually looks a lot worse because you go through something called a shedding phase. So between month 1 and 2, you could look somewhat normal after they shave your head. You might have a really nice looking hairline, nicer looking scalp, wherever you get those grafts transplanted. But from month number 2 all the way to month number even 5 is where those transplanted grafts start falling out, start shedding out, and even the hairs around it start shedding as well. So in those first initial months, it may look like your transplant even failed up to the 5-month mark, and then your transplanted hairs actually start growing for the next few months until your hair finally looks normal. So if you're looking for that initial growth for the fastest sign of a successful transplant, you have to minimally wait at least 6 to 8 months until you finally see something. That's why I'm so glad I got my hair transplant done at the perfect time. I got it done in February, so I was home in the winter time all day. I wasn't going out, and then when the summer finally came, it was July, August, my hair was finally grown out, and I couldn't be happier. So if you're looking to get a hair transplant, the winter time is usually a good time, especially if you're staying inside. This leads us to myth number 2. A hair transplant will last forever. There's this general sentiment thrown around all the time whenever I'm hanging out with my guy friends or even on social media. Hey, if I ever go bald, I'll just go to Turkey and get a transplant real quick. But it doesn't work like that. The reason why most guys end up going bald is because of a genetic hormone known as DHT, dihydrotestosterone. And we have over 100,000 hairs on our head. And with a transplant, the maximum they can do is anywhere in between 5 to 10,000 grafts. That's probably your genetic maximum. Anything beyond 10,000, you're just pushing it. And not only will those grafts have a pretty high rate of not succeeding, but also your donor area in the back is going to be completely depleted, and you're going to be bald in the back and bald in the front. That's why it's important even before and after your hair transplant is to stay on some sort of hair transplant protocol to ensure that your natural hairs that you have will stay, as well as after you get the hair transplant, those new grafts that you have, obviously they will also stay, but also at the same time you're preserving the natural grafts, so both of those things can work in synchrony at the same time to give you the best result for years down the road. It's not like a one and done, I'm just gonna go get a hair transplant, kind of like how you get LASIK. A hair transplant is also just a treatment, it's not a cure, so that's one thing you want to keep in mind because it's not gonna last forever if you don't maintain it. Next up, hair transplants are expensive. Now this is fairly true, especially if you're getting it done over here in the States, Canada, UK, wherever, especially here in the West. The clinics over here will charge you by the graft. So some clinics will charge you anywhere in between 10 to 15 to even upwards of $20+ per graft, and that can get very costly. Let's say on average you're paying $10 per graft, and if you get 3,000 grafts done in one session, you're paying upwards of $30,000, which is insane to think about. But if you go to a place like Turkey where everybody goes for a hair transplant, but obviously with the right trusted team and clinic, most of these clinics have a flat rate where they'll just charge X amount, but they can get you as many grafts as you need, which can be very cost efficient, especially if you're just someone who just want to one and done it instead of having to come back because obviously you don't have the funding for X amount of grafts that you need. So you have to go back and forth with multiple procedures and cause yourself a lot of financial and physical headache down the line of getting your transplant done. There are tons of great clinics in Turkey who can get you great results for a fraction of the price. And again, as I said, Vera Clinic is one of the best ones. That's the one that I went to, and I turned out fine. And something like a hair transplant should never break the bank, especially when we have excellent overseas resources available. Next up, you can use other people's hairs for your own hair transplant. I wish this was the case, and there are a bunch of donors who are able to donate their own hairs for people to just transplant all around, but unfortunately it doesn't work like that. I kind of thought that was the case, kind of like how in other medical procedures, how you could get like a heart transplant, a kidney, a liver transplant. I was like, why can't you just take another person's hair and also transplant that on? But unfortunately, when it comes to hair, there is a high level of rejection when it's not coming from your own body. And the two best places to extract hair from, where it's gonna look the most natural and can give you the most amount of density, is gonna be your own donor area, because it's already blended with your hair. And you know, just relocating the hair from the back to the front doesn't look too unnatural, and it's gonna look very even. Now, if you're someone who got like a mega session, maybe 8,000-10,000 grafts, you don't have enough grafts left, and you're still kind of like a severe case. In some cases, they'll even take grafts from the beard. Like sometimes they'll take it from underneath your neck and then transplant them back, because these two places have a pretty similar texture. A lot of people ask if they can use their chest hair, their armpit hair, and various other weird body part hairs that they can use, but unfortunately it's not gonna work, as those grafts have a very low survivability rate, and unfortunately they don't have that density. So the only place you can get your hair from is gonna be your own body, and the only two places where those grafts are gonna actually survive is gonna be underneath your neck, under your beard, and your donor area. A lot of people will actually even use their donor area to get a beard transplant. I know that's been a very common thing for those who have a beard that doesn't really connect. A lot of people go to Turkey to get two things done. I have had a couple of friends actually that went to Turkey, got their whole hairline done, and they came back with a full beard, and the results were phenomenal. You can always relocate the hair up here, but nothing below the neck. And lastly, anybody can get a hair transplant. I wish this was the case, but unfortunately, a hair transplant is not for everybody. There are a lot of factors that come into play to see if you're a good candidate for a hair transplant, such as one, obviously, the severity of your hair loss, the history of your hair loss, the quality of the hairs in the donor area, your age, and most importantly, your overall health. Let's say you are in Norwood 7, which is the last stage of the hair loss, where pretty much everything is gone and you only have the strip in the back. And on top of that, your donor area only has a bunch of single and double grafts. That's gonna be very hard for them to relocate everything in the back and bring it to the front and give you a full head of hair while still maintaining the hair over here. So in that case, unfortunately, most of the time you're not a good candidate. Some people, they even have a full head of hair, but the hair in the back and the donor area is very thin, and as a result of that, even when that is transplanted, the graft doesn't survive as well, and even after the transplant, the hair still looks very fine and very thin. Let's say, for example, if two people are getting a hair transplant, one has very fine hair, one has, you know, it's like normal to thick hair. It will take twice as many grafts to bring back the hairline for the person with fine hair as it will for the person with thicker hair, because obviously it's more area that needs to be covered, and because the natural hair is already so thin, it's going to take a lot more grafts on the back, so that person might need double or triple the grafts than that person. Again, everyone's body is different, and that's why it's important to do an honest assessment to see where you're at in your own hair loss journey to ensure that you are a good candidate for the hair transplants. So these were some common myths I hear all the time about a hair transplant, and for someone who's already done it and have seen great results and have helped many people along the way, I just wanted to debunk these and get these out of the way for you in one concise video. I hope you guys found this video valuable and you learned something from it. If you guys did, please be sure to let me know by giving it a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.